see how Joe Biden can survive here. I know it's better for Trump if he does. I don't really care. He's not fit. His staff is part of the biggest presidential cover-up in decades. He needs to step down from the presidency, never mind the campaign, for the safety of the country. That's what a big boy would do.
American politics often feels like tragicomedy when Joe Biden takes the stage, with his speeches resembling a string of bloopers and half-finished thoughts. Megyn Kelly cuts deeper than simple mockery, dissecting his flaws with sharp precision, showing how a man who once commanded the Oval Office now looks less like a seasoned leader and more like a collection.
Respect for all these guys. I don't have respect for the other side. Joe Biden would never sit for an interview with me. Same as Hillary Clinton, as she was out there saying I was a terrific journalist because I had this contentious exchange with Trump. Never once sat with me. Never agreed, even when the left was loving me, because she quite literally did not have the balls, neither physically nor theoretically, nor in no way. So anyway, there's my little rant about our weak politicians and our strong.
Megyn Kelly bluntly highlights Joe Biden's downfall, noting that the man once marketed as a steady hand after years of turmoil has instead become the symbol of how low politics sank when image replaced substance. Promoted as a stabilizing force, he's often struggled to steady himself on stage, let alone the nation. And Kelly argues his presidency was less true leadership than sluggish improvisation, with America left as the unwilling participant in his performance.
Person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
Oh my God. That's it. That's it, Emily. I mean, I'm looking at my own notes as this unfolded. And here's how they read. So rehearsed, so old, phlegm, needs subtitles. What is he saying?
Kelly's critique hits harder because she rejects the sympathy narrative that paints Biden as a kindly old man doing his best. Instead, she uses sharp humor to cast him as the bumbling neighbor who promises to fix your sink but floods the house, arguing that America didn't just pick the wrong handyman, it elected the wrong president, and the nation is still stuck, cleaning up the mess.
Multiple queued up, showing Biden's utter confusion. He did not have the facts. He was confused over very basic facts, and it was repeated. Take a listen to this, SOT 3.
We have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they in fact pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 million.
Kelly targets Biden's speeches, describing them as incoherent puzzles that left audiences more confused than informed. His words often drifted into tangents, resembling tragic improv comedy where the punchline was always unintentional humiliation, making every address feel less like leadership and more like a riddle with no clear solution.
Went to Maui finally last night with his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, and he made it about himself again. Seriously, there's something wrong with the president. This is not normal behavior. He started talking about a kitchen fire he had in his home. I'm sorry, you can't make it up. How he could relate to these people who have now, about the latest tally I heard was 115 dead. I mean, there are almost 1,000 still missing, including children. And he wants to talk.
Shifts to Biden's policies, mocking how his so-called recovery plan left Americans needing recovery from the recovery. She skewers skyrocketing inflation that turned groceries into luxuries and gas fill-ups into mini-mortgages, arguing that Bidenomics became less a promise of prosperity and more a synonym for financial anxiety.
But I have to mention it, the weird nibbling of the baby the other day. What's up with that? You're a parent, I'm a parent. There is not a normal parent who goes over to a stranger's child and eats their upper shoulder to say hello or show affection. It's bizarre. And I realize as you get older, your behavior may change, but really what happens is you lose some inhibitions. You don't lose that many inhibitions. I've known a lot of elderly.
Kelly exposes Biden's hypocrisy, noting how he sold himself as a unifier but governed like division was his sport of choice. His promise of civility collapsed with his approval ratings, and instead of bridging divides, he widened them into canyons. She skewers his blunders, gaffes, awkward handshakes, aimless wandering as proof he wasn't leading the nation so much as losing track of it, leaving America trapped in a slapstick show where, disturbingly, the clown held the nuclear codes.
Last night, he's caught at the White House on camera speaking to reporters. This is from Fox News. We went back to look at the original to see what led to this moment. Asked him about Trump's plan to end birthright citizenship.
Do you still believe he's a threat to democracy?
I think what he did was a genuine threat to democracy. By being the oldest president, I know more world leaders than any one of you ever met in your whole goddamn.
Doesn't hold back on the Biden family scandals, from Hunter's laptop saga to murky business dealings, arguing they overshadow any claim to integrity and turned the White House into a lore-rated reality show. She also skewers Biden's foreign policy, with the chaotic Afghanistan withdrawal as a glaring catastrophe, contrasting it with Trump's return, where, controversies aside, there was at least clarity about who was in charge.
His daughter's diary, which we're not allowed to discuss, why again? She says that they took inappropriate showers together when she was a child, she and Joe Biden. We don't have to look very far to see his string of inappropriate behavior with women, adult women, not to mention somewhat younger ones with this hair smelling. It's just, it doesn't make me feel comfortable. And if I don't feel comfortable, there's probably something wrong. I want people to dig further. They won't. It's so good to be a Biden. The press runs cover for you no matter what.
Leaderless project. With the man once sold as America's restorer instead misplacing the nation between Delaware and D.C., she argues his empathy feels hollow. His man-of-the-people persona collapses against rising gas prices and crime, and his presidency relies on hugs and platitudes while real problems worsen, making him, in her view, a running gag of a leader who treats therapy sessions like governance.
Say it because, we all have this experience, I think, where somebody in our family or somebody beloved by someone close to us ends up in like the last stages of their life. They're, experiencing various forms of dementia. They go into nursing homes. You can't follow a conversation any longer. And they get very grumpy at the same time, like almost aggressive. That was like, I would have been concerned for my physical safety if I had been in the vicinity of Joe Biden when he was speaking that way, because actually that dementia can make people very physically powerful.
Kelly concludes by arguing Biden's legacy will be remembered less for achievements and more for gaffes, with historians likely replaying his speeches for laughs, rather than insight. She frames his presidency as a placeholder tenure, ending only with Trump's return, and delivers the sharpest jab. The biggest joke was believing he was ever fit for the job, beyond Biden. She skewers the culture that celebrated mediocrity and gaslit Americans into mistaking dysfunction for normalcy.
The president has about had it with Vice President Kamala Harris and everyone around her pretending she has already won and ascended to his job.
We're going to be president. Hang on a second, man. Sure. We're going to be going to the Congress. We're going to need a lot of help. We need a lot more money as we identify specifically how much is needed. So I'm just telling everybody now. I don't want to hear that this is going to be the end of it. So with that, I'll yield to the vice president.
She's speaking. He's not even listening to her. He's looking at his notes. Everybody else is doing her the courtesy of looking her way.
Kelly mocks the absurd praise Biden received just for showing up, turning basic competence into a spectacle of merely reading a teleprompter, often unsuccessfully. She skewers his coddled relationship with the press, fed softballs instead of tough questions, arguing that when the media worries more about his embarrassment than accountability, it exposes a presidency babysat rather than scrutinized. To her, Biden wasn't just unfit. The so-called defender of democracy couldn't even manage his own words, stumbling through speeches and the very idea of leadership itself.
Or, speaking of those around him who covered up his infirmity, or at least that's where my mind went, Dr. Jill was there too, and as usual, came to the rescue. Watch SOT 38.
What is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that, number one. Number two, think
this
of
is about the books.
What we're left with. We're left with a circumstance where we had an insurrection when I started.
Kelly frames the real comedy in Biden's obliviousness, self-congratulation, awkward celebrations, and shouting at invisible critics, all masquerading as statesmanship. She likens him to Mr. Bean trying to be Churchill, with authority attempts turning into memes faster than policies. Aided by advisors who acted more like babysitters than staff, even on the global stage, moments at G7 meetings highlighted a president trailing behind, unsure, and dependent, serving as stark reminders that America's credibility wobbled.
People who wrote those books were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day. Joe worked really hard. I think he was a great president.
She says none of these people writing the books worked for us. Well, one of the first to have his book hit interviewed Ron Klain, who was Joe Biden's chief of staff for almost all of his presidency. And he went on the record saying that Biden thought he was president of NATO. Where was that follow-up?
Kelly hammers Biden by contrasting his grand promises with the harsh reality. Pledges of dignity, unity, and global strength collapsed into disasters like Afghanistan, divisive politics, and constant excuses. She mocks his endless vacations while Americans struggled, framing him as a leader permanently on leave from reality, and ridicules defenses claiming he was sharper behind the scenes. For Kelly, his legacy isn't legislation but the exhaustion of watching a bumbling presidency. And with Trump's return highlighting contrast, Biden appears as the accidental president who squandered his chance, becoming a cautionary tale of overpromised and underdelivered leadership.